Hello and welcome back to another movie review. Tonight, unexpectedly, I got to see Man of Steel. And here a little bit later than I wanted to be, but I figured what the heck, it was worth it, right? I actually ended up liking this a lot more than I thought I was going to. A little bit long, but I can deal with that. I actually kind of felt that I'd kind of been getting burned out on the superhero movies, because the last couple that I watched that everyone said were great, I just was kind of about. It's not that I didn't like them or that I disliked them, it's just I was kind of tired of seeing the same thing over and over, like with my review of Iron Man 3. This, on the other hand, towards the end it got into that territory where I was like, okay, let's wrap this up already. But I think that might have been more that I'm getting a little bit tired, and I still got to go back to my apartment and finish packing, because I move out of the apartment in the morning. Yay. So the movie actually starts out on Krypton, and you have a little bit of a variation on the common story of, the world's ending and Jor-El wants to send his son to Earth and whatever, and Zod comes in and basically assaults the High Council and saying that their constant bickering with each other kind of allowed this to happen. So he's taking over for the safety of Krypton, and Jor-El says, it's too little too late because Krypton's already doomed, whatever. So Zod kind of takes over the government, and Jor-El takes off back to his house to prepare the ship, and Zod comes after him because he steals the Codex, which sort of is all the knowledge of Krypton. They kind of did it in the animated series with how the animated series Origin of Brainiac, which wasn't the original Origin of Brainiac, but it was a nice twist. So basically it's just this codex that has all of Krypton's knowledge in it, and Jor-El steals it to send it with Kal-El to Earth. So before Krypton is destroyed, the council regains the government, and they hold the trial and sentence Zod and his followers to the Phantom Zone. When Krypton's destroyed, it sets Zod free from the Phantom Zone, because I guess the ship hadn't fully gone into the Phantom Zone yet or something. I don't really remember how they explained it. So, them knowing that they're the last survivors of Krypton, they go to all these Krypton outposts, because apparently Krypton used to go out and find other planets and live on them and had different areas. But once all those were cut off from Krypton, they all died out. He goes around all these substations looking for survivors. All of them are dead. And they basically just kind of take whatever technology, weapons, armors, whatever they can find on these substations, and they're just roaming the galaxy doing this until Clark Kent sets off the homing beacon from a ship that he finds on Earth, which was a scout ship when Kryptonians used to go out and look for other planets. So that's kind of the backstory of Zod and how they found their way to Earth and everything. The story, one thing I do like about the start of this movie is something I also liked in the animated series, is that I like the character of Jor-El, Superman's father. In some movies and adaptations, he's known just as a scientist, but later they've been kind of saying, he's a scientist, but he's also a soldier and can be a badass when he needs to. And they kind of did this a little bit in the animated series, but it was only a short 30-minute episode, and, you really didn't get too much of it. In this, the whole first, probably 45 minutes of the movie is just, Jor-El kicking Zod's ass, because they have this little back and forth about, basically it's a philosophical debate between them, but as they're doing it, they're fighting. So it's actually pretty cool. I would actually love to see just a whole movie about Jor-El leading up to the launch of the ship. Or like even before the whole destruction of Krypton was to come about, just who was Jor-El? Just this whole movie about him would be, in my mind, would be awesome. Probably never happen. But, yeah, so I've always liked the character, so I liked the way they handled him in this. It was a nice homage to what they were starting to do with him in the animated series for the one pilot basically the pilot episode, the first episode. It's just a longer, drawn-out version of it, which I liked. Then it shows the rocket take off to Earth, goes through the wormhole, gets to Earth, and crashes into Kansas, and then that's it. We don't get the Kents finding the ship and all that. We just skip straight ahead to Clark as an adult. He basically, then we follow him as an adult, and he's basically kind of a guardian angel thing. He's just kind of this guy that blends into the background of the shadows, takes these odd jobs, to put himself in places that he can be helpful. And then when whatever he's going there to prevent happens, he prevents it. And then he immediately disappears and goes on to someplace else, changes his name, starts a new job. I believe they said the reason he was doing that was to try and locate any additional information about who he was or where he came from, because the ship that he arrived in really doesn't give him the knowledge like it did in the original movies. So we kind of follow him around, and after each one of these little excursions, it kind of does a flashback to him growing up with the Kents, like how his mother taught him to, block out all the sounds of the world that he was hearing and focus on one thing and all that. Jonathan Kent doing the, whole, you got to hold yourself back. You can't let people see who you are. Yeah, this bully wants to fight you. You could easily destroy him, but, don't. So there's that whole thing, and then he eventually meets up with Lois Lane, and it's when he's doing one of his odd jobs, and this happens to be where he finds the scout ship, which is when he activates the tracking beacon that he didn't know he activated. So then he takes off with the ship, and I guess that becomes his Fortress of Solitude, because that's where he's able to activate the little crystal thing that his father sent with him. And that's where you now have the image of Jor-El explaining things to him and helping him to learn. So I guess that's kind of his Fortress of Solitude now. So Lois Lane is trying to track him back. So she goes to the place where she encountered him, which was where the ship was. And the people say, oh, well, he was this guy. I think he said he came from here, kind of sad to see him go. He was a good worker type of thing. And then she'd go back to where they said that he had came from, and eventually she tracks it all the way back to Smallville and finds out that he's Clark Kent. Clark Kent basically tells her, it's basically not a secret to Lois from the beginning, which is kind of odd. So we do find out that, spoiler, Jonathan Kent did die, and he did it to help keep his son secret. There was a tornado that came through, and Clark was going to go, was helping get people out of their cars and get them to safety under the overpass, and he was going to go back to get the dog, and his father said, no, I'll get him, and the father got the dog, but got his ankle crushed by another car falling on top of the car that he was in, and Clark was going to run over to get him, and he put his hand up and said, no, no, don't, stay where you are. And then he just kind of stood there, and the tornado took him. And Clark was like, I could have saved him, but I let him die because I trusted him to know that what he had said was right, kind of thing. So, yeah, Jonathan Kent died. Wasn't of a heart attack like in the original movies. So then, Jor-El's memory engrams are explaining everything to Clark and tell him who he is and, you know, where he came from and why he's there and all this. And so then you have this a montage of Superman learning how to fly. So he does the jumping around bit, because originally he was only able to leap tall buildings in a single bound until basically he traveled much of the way the Incredible Hulk does, until his powers progressed and then he was able to fly in the comic books. So that's kind of what he's doing here, but it's in a short burst. He just kind of jumps around for a bit, and then he's able to focus and channel it and learns how to fly. When they're flying, when he's first flying, it goes to these front face shots, kind of a close-up thing, and they do the sound effect that you used to hear in the old George Reeves version of Superman, the original TV serials. And so, like, as he's flying, you hear the whoosh sound that you used to hear when George Reeves' version of Superman would fly on the show. They'd do this whoosh sound to show that he was flying. It actually went longer than that. I can't do it for a long period of time. But they played that, and I recognized it right away, and I was like, oh, nice little nod to it. Yeah, so then basically Zod arrives at Earth and tells, he broadcasts all over the news and says, one of my people has been hiding among you, have him surrender to me, and, no harm will come to you. So then they try and figure out, where is he, come forward, blah, blah, blah. So he finally comes forward, and he goes, I'll surrender myself to see what he wants, but I feel that he can't be trusted. Then it's basically just, they destroy half the world fighting each other. Zod has more than 2 other people with him, but in the original Superman 2, I think it was, when he fought Zod, he had the girl and then the other guy with him. They do have those 2 characters in the movie, but he has like 10 other lesser minions with him as well. They don't really do much in the way of fighting. They're more like they're running the ship type of thing. But the other 2 are there. So there's a battle between... Zod gets taken out kind of early because he has a breathing helmet thing. They all have to have that because they haven't adapted to breathe in the Earth's atmosphere like Clark was able to. And so when Zod's helmet is damaged, they retreat him back to the ship and the other 2 stay to fight. So basically Smallville gets destroyed in that battle. Then Superman's victorious. Well, sort of. They kind of have to retreat themselves. Actually, I don't think they showed what happened to the big guy. I forget his name, but yeah. So then later on, Zod, he manages to adapt to the atmosphere and everything, and learns to channel his power a little bit. And then him and Clark have the battle through Metropolis, and basically all of Metropolis gets destroyed. There are some LexCorp logos in the background during the fight. Another guy that works here said that he saw a Wayne Enterprises sign. I was kind of looking for that one too, but I missed it. But there were some nods to LexCorp, so possibly the next movie. Where was I? Oh yeah, so they basically destroy Metropolis in this battle. Like, no building is left standing. The city's just in ruins. I don't know how they ever rebuild it. So yeah, then Zod ends up getting destroyed. Unfortunately, they didn't do the nod towards the original and do the kneel before Zod line. I kept waiting for it, and it didn't happen. I think he did say something about kneeling right before the end of the battle, but he didn't say kneel before Zod. He said something about, if you truly love these people. I don't remember what he said, but yeah, basically he was trying to get the upper hand on Superman by attacking people, and Superman said no, and basically kills Zod. Zod won't be returning. Zod is dead. Spoiler. I know I'm supposed to say that before I tell that, but yeah, spoiler. Zod dies. And then Superman's kind of raging because he actually had to take a life, which, you know, he's raised better than that. Then he goes back to check on his mother. His mother's fine. And she goes, well, what are you going to do between the times that you're saving the world? He goes, well, I'm going to need to find a job where I can keep my ear on the pulse, you know what's going on, know where I need to be. And then that's when he moves to Metropolis and gets a job at the Daily Planet. Walks in, and Perry White, who's played by Lawrence Fishburne, Lawrence Fishburne, which was actually kind of a nice twist. Wasn't really a bad fit. Not the best one either. The Jimmy Olsen character, I guess, was Jenny Olsen in this one, and honestly, I didn't even realize that's who it was until they yelled Jenny. Because basically she's, like, unseen through this entire movie until the city's under attack, or while they're fighting in the city, and they, like, we need to get out of the building. They get out of the building, and then one of the buildings is falling, and this girl's just standing there looking up, and then Perry says, Jenny, move! And that's when I realized who it was supposed to be. But up until that point, I had no idea who this person was. It could have just easily been an intern. I don't know why some people were upset that the Jimmy Olsen character was being replaced with a girl. Because, honestly, I had no idea that's who it was. They could still introduce a Jimmy Olsen character later, and it would still completely fit. You know, yeah, Jimmy Olsen was supposed to have been working at the planet already when Clark came to work there, but Lois wasn't supposed to know who he was at that point either. So basically, Clark comes in, and Perry says, this is the new guy, I need you guys to show him the ropes, and his name's Clark Kent, and that's when Lois looks up, sees him, stands up and says, hello, Clark, welcome to the planet, meaning the Daily Planet, but at the same time she's welcoming Superman to Earth, so it's kind of a little joke between them. One thing I did also kind of like is Lois Lane was barely the damsel in distress in this movie. She's in almost the entire movie. Once she finally shows up, she doesn't go away. But there's only like 2 times that Superman had to save her, and it was when, maybe 3, but it was always when she was falling from something. When they were first trying to escape from Zod's ship that was in orbit when Superman first surrendered, she's in an escape pod, and the escape pod is damaged and is falling apart. Superman flies down, rips open the escape pod, and carries her away, puts her down on the ground. Then another time, towards the end of the movie, they're on this plane. They're trying to shoot a missile at the spaceship that's trying to terraform the Earth because they're going to try and turn it into a new Krypton. And the lady henchman is Zod. I can't think of her name. I think it's Ilsa or something like that. It's been a while since I saw the original to really remember her name. Superman 2, I should say. So she crashes into the plane, and it knocks Lois off balance, and she's kind of hanging on to the drop gate of the airplane. And the plane ends up crashing into the ship because they can't fire the missile. And right when that happens, she falls off the back. And it's not really that she's falling because there's like a gravity well that forms because it's forming a black hole, basically. And so she's just kind of floating there. First she's falling, then she's floating, then she's starting to be sucked into the black hole. Superman flies up, grabs her, and brings her back down. At one point, another nice little nod, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but when Superman's trying to destroy the terraforming machine, he's standing basically right in the middle of the gravity well that it's producing, and when he looks up at it, the gravity well like pulls his face back, and I don't know if this was CGI made it look that way intentionally, but when it pulled his face back, he had a really striking resemblance to Christopher Reeves. Like I said, I don't know if it was intentional, if it was just coincidence, if it was CGI'd, but I just happened to notice, I was like, wow, he really looks like Christopher Reeves in that shot. And again, that was a nice little nod to another Superman. I said, don't know. I could have just been seeing things, but if you guys have seen the movie and you noticed it, let me know. So yeah, basically that's kind of the end of the movie. He shows up at the planet, at the Daily Planet, as Clark Kent. Him and Lois have this little inside joke. he he is being tracked by the government, but he kind of just tells the general, "Look, I know you're trying to keep an eye on me, but you know, I'm not gonna go against you. I'm gonna try and help you where I can, but I need to do it on my own terms." General says, "How do I know you're not going to turn against America?" He goes, "I was raised in Kansas. It doesn't get much more American than that." So there, Superman again is kind of telling the world who he is flat out. Um, I guess it's kind of a nice little nod towards realism that, if someone like this did exist, eventually someone's going to be able to track him down, and he's not going to be able to keep his true identity a secret very long. But yeah, so that's basically the movie. It's really action packed. The fighting's good. One bad thing about when they're doing the CGI or green screen fighting type of thing is partial CGI, partial green screening. When they're flying into each other to like punch each other, they're like doing it so rapidly that it's kind of hard to follow what's going on. You just see these quick flashes of people moving around. So yeah, that was a little bit of an annoyance, but other than that, if you could deal with that, then there was a lot of action in it. Let's see, as far as the star rating goes, up until the ending, I was pushing towards a 4.5 with this one. But like I said, after the battle was done and Clark had came to the planet, and then they had to do this other little bit where he talks to the government, and it's just like, by that point, it's like, come on, wrap the movie up already, It was a long movie. I forget how long it was, like 2.5 hours. They could have done with like 30 minutes less. Keep it at a 2 hour. Except stupidly, if they were going to do that, they would have shaved off all the cool stuff at the beginning with Jor-El and just had the basic opening of, here's Zod, here's Jor-El, ship's gone, and then cut to Earth, And I like that they kept that beginning part in instead of cutting it out. But I think they could have trimmed a little bit off the end and a few parts in the middle. Just to tighten up the story a little bit. But, like I said, it being Hollywood, had they been told to trim 30 minutes off of it, it would have been the entire destruction of Krypton end of it instead of the crap at the end. Always cut out the good part to keep the part that you think is wrapping up the story that you don't really need. So, with that said, I'm going to rate it. I really wish I did quarter ratings or had a different rating scale than 1 through 5. I was going to do a 4.5, but because it ran a little bit long, and like I said, it could just be that I was getting tired by the end of it. I'm kind of tired now. And I've been rambling for like, God knows how long, 20 minutes probably. So yeah, I'm going to give it a 4. Wrap this up already. I'm going to give it a 4. It was close to a 4.5 if they'd shaved a few minutes off the ending and a little bit in the middle. It would have been a solid 4.5. So I am actually happy that I enjoyed this because, like I said, I felt that I was getting burned out on superhero movies after my Iron Man 3 review. But this has kind of rekindled it. I was looking forward to seeing this, but I had the doubt that, I want to see it, but I know it's going to be another Iron Man 3, and thankfully I was wrong. So yeah, I do recommend seeing it. They do alter the origin story a little bit and a lot of the known canon, but I think they're trying to jump ahead a little bit to catch up to where they wanted to be for the sequel of Superman Returns, which was also originally going to be titled Man of Steel. That was kind of weird. They filmed Superman Returns. It had a scheduled follow-up that was going to be Man of Steel, and then that was going to tie into the Nolan Batman series leading into Justice League, but then they scrapped that, but now they did this reboot, which they also called Man of Steel, and now it's still going to be leading into the Justice League, somewhat tying back into Nolan's Batman, but I guess with Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Batman or Robin or whatever now. Anyway, so yeah, that's Man of Steel. They actually only called him Superman like once in the entire movie. Lois asked him what the S stood for. They show this part in the preview, and she goes, "How about suit?" And then he hears something and looks off to the side, and so she never actually says it. But then later, after they realize that between Zod's troops and Superman's the one that's on their side, one of the soldiers comes in and says they're tracking Superman, or we have a report of Superman here doing something, and then the general's like, Superman? He goes, yeah, that's what the people are calling him. So that was like the only time really that the name Superman was said in the movie, other than when Lois was kind of coming up with it. So where it came from, unless Lois just threw it out later, like, yeah, his name's Superman type of thing, who knows. Yeah, so that's Man of Steel. I do recommend seeing it. As far as the 3D, wasn't really much to that. Nothing really jumped out. Didn't really give that much depth perception. So maybe bypass the 3D. I saw it in IMAX, and usually I like the IMAX 3D, and yeah, it just didn't really add anything to it. Kind of like Iron Man. I saw that in Iron Man 3, I should say. I saw that in IMAX as well after I'd watched it for the review. Just to see if the IMAX 3D was any better, and no, it still didn't add anything. So yeah, don't recommend seeing it in 3D. Just watch it in 2D. But definitely see it. If you can't see it in theater, definitely pick it up when it comes out on DVD or Blu-ray or Redbox or Netflix, whatever. Anyway, that's it for this review. I've rambled about this one probably longer than I've rambled about any other review I've done. Not sure what I'm going to get around to seeing next. I know I always say that, but this time I really don't know, because I've been working closings pretty much the last week and a half, and it's really hard for me to get to see movies when I'm closing. But anyway, I'll be back eventually with something. I still want to see Now You See Me. I still want to see This Is the End. I need to rewatch Epic. There was another one that I wanted to see. What was it? I don't remember, but yeah, one of those will be my next review. Until then, thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the movies.